They have some slides that you may have seen as you came in from the waiting room, and we'll get to all that. But I do want to set the stage here. This is a rather unique situation where a project that had been approved for full zoning and development rights some years ago, over 4 years ago, never got built for a variety of reasons, largely economic, but there were others as well. That project itself had some controversy around it. There was not unanimous agreement that it was the right thing for the neighborhood. But I can tell you right now, we do have unanimous agreement on at least one point, and that is having vacant retail space languishing dark for an extended period of time on a very prominent piece of real estate is not good for the neighborhood. That may be one thing we all agree on. So what we're going to do tonight is look at some changes to a new proposal that is significantly reduced in height and density from the original proposal. It does not require further zoning changes. It does require what's called an administrative adjustment, which is a much less burdensome process to go through. We don't typically have community meetings for administrative adjustments. We're having one for this particular project simply because of the amount of time since we last got together to talk about the future of this site, and also because of the interest in it. And because, again, as I said, we've gotten a lot of complaints in the last couple of years from people saying, what is going on with Barnes and Noble? It looks bad. It's a blight on the neighborhood. We have to do something. So tonight we're going to see what that something is. And to help me with the presentation, I want to introduce and thank my co-host for tonight's meeting, the incoming president of the Gold Coast Neighbors Association. Please welcome Melissa Rickey. Melissa.
Hi, thank you, Alderman Hopkins. On behalf of Gold Coast Neighbors Association, I'm delighted to represent our organization as a co-host for this important community meeting. I'm also happy that so many of our members have expressed their continued interest in the future of this property by signing up for this virtual meeting. There has long been interest and concern among our neighbors about the future of the former Barnes & Noble property on State Street. This meeting was organized to help answer the concerns and questions about this too long vacant property. Part of the mission of the Gold Coast Neighbors is to positively impact decisions on beautification, zoning, the economy, and safety. Future plans for this land at 1120 to 1130 State Street will have a significant impact on all these areas, especially the economy. Like all of you, our organization is interested in hearing about the future plans from Convexity Properties for the centrally located, economically significant area. We also assure our membership that Gold Coast Neighbors will remain active in the issues surrounding this property and the plans that move forward. I'm now going to turn it over to Chris Oakley of Convexity Properties. Thank you.
Chris, if you're talking, you are muted, sir.
Still muted.
Still muted.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that.
I gotcha.
Well, first, I guess Paul Shadle from our land use attorney is also on. I don't know, Paul, if there's anything in addition to what Alderman Hopkins said that you may want to touch upon before we start the actual presentation.
I think Alderman covered it, and I would just get right into the presentation, and then we can talk about process in response to questions. I guess it's an administrative process. We would be seeking the plans that you're going to show would go to the Department of Planning and Development, and they would review to confirm that they are consistent with the plan development, which they are, before issuing an approval. But Chris, I think probably best for you just and the architects to describe the changes.
Okay, well, I'll jump right in, and first and foremost, Convexity Properties. We are a Chicago-based real estate developer. We have done work in and around the Gold Coast. Go to the slide with the projects. Yeah, that one. So in the immediate neighborhood, we're the owners and redevelopers of the Three Arts Club up on Dearborn. The 4 East Elm condominium building is also one of our projects. Immediately adjacent to this property, the Viceroy Hotel, is again one of our projects. And then the very first project we did as a development firm was the Esquire Theater on Oak Street. So we are kind of invested and committed to the neighborhood. as a whole. And I think we've actually delivered, some very nice projects in this immediate area and in other neighborhoods in Chicago. Um, the site obviously, is 33,000 square feet. As the Alderman you mentioned, Barnes and Noble vacated, I believe, in 2016. The Lou Malnati's is still obviously there, but it is a parcel and very prominent parcel and land area that really is kind of in want and need of redevelopment. This image here, you actually, it actually kind of completes a triad for us, between the Viceroy Hotel and the 4 East Elm. So we are very excited to be working on this. The next one. Just go back one, jumped ahead. So yeah, this is just what's there now. Obviously Barnes and Noble vacant, has been vacant for a while. And then the Lou Malnati's there. You can pop to the next one then. Next slide. So the previous PD that the Alderman mentioned, was a building that was, up to 300, I think it was 345 feet. It had a 16.8 FAR located on the northern portion of the property. Over the northern and the southern portion of the property, I think it totaled 11.5 as an FAR. So we actually looked at this, from a design and a development point of view, and are proposing some changes. And then to start to touch on the actual design, I'd like to turn this over to Paul DeSantis. He's the design principal with Getch Associates, Getch Partners, excuse me, and he can run through what we're proposing to do here.
Thank you, Chris. So as we can see here, this mouse just kind of works. You can see the original building was parallel to Elm Street, as well as being parallel to State Street, and created this kind of L-shaped component. And then it had a series of kind of steps in the massing of the building that culminated at 345 feet high in the city. And so what we've done when we started to work with Convexity and look at what would be best in the neighborhood, we've proposed some minor changes to the building. And so what you can see is on that northern edge, we are no longer parallel to Elm Street. We've actually created more open space between the context buildings, almost 100 feet up at that corner from where our building anchors. So we're able to open up views to the north, to the lake, and actually between the towers that are, just to the northeast of us. We're still going to be parallel to State Street, but we've encroached a little bit further, but not overlapping with the Viceroy building, so that we're able to get great views not only to the south and the east, but also to the north and west, and kind of works a little bit more contextually within the neighborhood. Here on the right, you can see our floor plan, and our floor plan is represented in these shades of green, which represent the different unit types that we have within the building. It's roughly the same area of the floor plate, roughly. You can see the previous profile in red here versus our new profile, which is shown here. So what we've able to do is kind of elongate the building a little bit, but still give more breathing space and view corridors to our towers that are around us on the site. When we go to the section of the building, previously the PD had us, at 345. We've been able to reduce our height to 312 feet. Which I think is more appropriate for this environment. So we're lower and we're actually a smaller building itself. And one of the big advantages for us is that we've created a very beautiful street frontage that's along State Street. State Street will still have its gracious sidewalks, even though our property line goes further out. We're being able to maintain a gracious 12-foot sidewalk and follow along with some wonderful trees that are a part of the Chicago fabric, which we think that our retailers and the residents are really going to like. We also are locating the lobby for the residential tower along Elm Street. So it's a bit more of a compact lobby, and it gives us more room for that street frontage. All of our loading and servicing will be off of the existing alley, just the way it functions today for Lou Malnati's. And we are also introducing an elevator and a vestibule that takes us up to a second floor retail component that'll have a nice terrace that looks out over the Viceroy Plaza as well as State Street itself, so that we can actually have second floor activation for what we probably believe will be a nice food and beverage destination. So it's really an active street front is what we want, an intimate lobby for the residences that are accessed along Elm, and our ramp entry would be off of adjacent to the alleyway as well. This is a current kind of vision for the building. One of the things that you will see is that the building is certainly lower than what it was before, but more importantly, we've introduced outdoor space or balconies into this building that really wasn't a part of what it was before. We really feel like that kind of activation of the exterior elevation is very important. And then we've designed it so that we have almost like two interlocking L forms, which creates two unique outdoor spaces. One at level 18, and then the other one is the rooftop at level 28. And these will be our amenity spaces within the project. So these picture windows then are created to reinforce not only those outdoor balcony spaces, but also the outdoor spaces for the residents. Uh, it's been very intentional that we do not bring the tower architecture to the ground. We wanted to create a 5-story podium that introduced different materials. So not the tower materials, but unique materials like brick and metal and glass that are very contextual within the neighborhood. We felt that it was important that that was one of the key elements that differentiated the previous scheme versus what we're doing today. Um, these are just some kind of vignettes of what that State Street elevation can start to look like. So you'll see we'll have kind of large trees and plantings. We'll have lots of transparency for the retail activation, and then a mixture of champagne metal and brick that gives a kind of a richness to the kind of the streetscape. We really want the public realm to be active and inviting and not feel like it is just another tower coming to the ground. And here you can kind of see this becomes the Elm Street elevation where we have kind of our own distinct entry into the tower lobby. And we want to prominently identify the logo and the number for the tower, and discreetly hide the access into the ramp for the parking that would be adjacent to the alley. Along State Street, we really want to celebrate that area where you can come in, take elevators, and go up to the level 2 food and beverage or retail opportunity with a really nice outdoor terrace that really works in harmony with the Viceroy building. But really, it's all about creating an active street frontage, and this is kind of what you see here. So I'm going to throw it back to Chris to talk a little bit about the timeline for the project.
Okay, thank you. So, right now, working with Paul and his team, we're actually working towards the start of our permit submittals in February of this month, with a construction start in June of the summertime in June. And just to kind of walk through, this is kind of provided by the folks at O'Neill. From a logistics point of view, this would be, starting in June, with demolition on the northern portion, the Barnes and Noble building, and then probably moving, to the southern portion when Lou Malnati's vacates in July. So this would be, June to November, from a kind of a staging and a logistics point of view. During this time, this is demolition, this is excavation and foundation work. The sidewalks would be kind of managed with an overhead canopy along both State and Elm Street. And this shows, the thoughts regarding construction access for this effort. After November, go to the next one. So November, this is where the building starts to go vertical. Our tower crane's installed, and the structural exercise starts. The enclosure of the building would probably follow the structure by about 5 floors or so as the building goes vertical. So this is November of 26 to July of 27. You can go to the next. In August of 27, the tower crane comes down. The building has been topped out. The enclosure continues, and the interior work has started and is following the enclosure. So this is August to January of 28. And then following this, the next slide, please. The man lift on the exterior of the building comes down. The building is 100% enclosed. Interior work is being completed. And then the site work, sidewalk planting and such is being implemented. And then the building, targeting a building C of O in March of 28 when move-ins would start. So that's our current timeline and process, for the building. We are working, somewhat aggressively to kind of, hit the start date and get this moving. I think that's about it for our team. And I guess, Brian, if you're going to open up for Q&A at this time, I believe.
That's correct. Some of you have already found the Q&A chat box feature. Generally with groups this large, I find this to be one of the more efficient ways to get as many questions answered in a reasonable amount of time as possible. So if there is something that was not covered in the presentation that you'd like asked, please go ahead and put it in there, and I'll do my best to get to it and consolidate repetitive questions as much as possible. We'll go for a little while. So I'll go ahead and start with you touched upon Lou Malnati's. Obviously, that's on a few people's minds. So if you talk a little bit about that. Sounds like their lease is up this summer. Is that correct?
That is correct. And there is not an extension option in their lease. I believe they had a 5-year option, which they exercised, but that lease, wraps up end of June. And we are having conversations with them, regarding the location, and what their needs may be. There's nothing definitive at this time, but there is open dialogue going on now with their real estate folks.
Great. Next question. I don't think this was touched upon, so definitely want to talk about it. How many units? What mix of unit type? I think you said 28 floors at one point, but let's confirm that
Correct.
height as well, in floors, not just feet.
Yes, 28 floors, 312 feet, 307 units. We are, the unit breakdown is, there's a handful of 3 bedrooms. It's about 25% 2 bedrooms. We break the 1 bedrooms into kind of 2 tranches, let's call it, like a more traditional, 1 bedroom unit that's probably in the 750 square feet, and then smaller 1 bedrooms, that could be as small as 600 square feet. And then we do have I think right now we have about 20 actual studio units. So in lieu of doing a studio unit heavy building, we actually prefer to introduce like a smaller 1 bedroom and then a more traditional 1 bedroom, kind of into the mix.
Great.
Someone asked about the former Cooper Hawk site on Oak Park. We'll get back to you with the answer in your email. We have your email address from when you register. We're going to try to keep the questions on topic tonight, but we'll get back to you on that separately. Thank you.
Let's talk about parking, please. How many spaces? What are they allocated for? Retail, residential, any public parking, that type of.
No public parking. The parking is 100% allocated, for the residential, as accessory parking for that use. I think we are staying with the original PD at 132 spaces, but I believe their spaces were split between 2 different phases. We are proposing, the parking to be provided all at the same time. Like there won't be a trailing kind of additive parking element later. The parking will be accessed off Elm Street, kind of adjacent to the alley side. I think Paul touched upon that, which is the same location the previous PD had the parking access.
All right. What is your ideal retail tenant other than restaurant?
I think the way the building is being set up, optimally speaking, although it's kind of hard to get there, it's hard to say retail tenant like specific use. The in and up space that Paul touched upon is definitely being tailored, for an F&B restaurant type user. The bulk of the retail, like our preference personally would be if it could be all soft goods, conventional retail, not all food or not a lot of food, would be the ideal. But we really just have to kind of, get out to that market, which we started to in a very quiet way, but we don't really have a specific tenant list at this time.
Let's talk a little bit about the public way improvements. You mentioned trees, wider sidewalks. There's a question here about if there's going to be any improvements to the crosswalks, and also there's a question about if there's going to be I think the correct term in this case would be lay by lane, but a pull off either on Elm or State for cars to pull over and not be in a traffic lane.
So Paul touched upon it, and it's probably kind of hard to follow a little bit, but the actual property line is very curious at this location, and kind of along State Street at the northern portion, the property line actually extends almost to the curb. So what a decision we made kind of early in the process, which I don't believe was part of the current approved PD, was we set we're setting back like the entirety of our retail frontage, 12 feet from back of curb, which is a city stand. Once you're at 12 feet, it is a parkway planter and tree, kind of setup. So that's when Paul talked about kind of the streetscape improvement. That's the one thing along State Street. So State Street frontage should still be maintained as parking as is today. The one thing we inherited from the previous PD was that at the State Elm intersection there is a curb extension. Both Elm Street and State Street curb extensions. Those curb extensions, effectively shorten the crosswalk, which is kind of a good thing from a traffic movement point of view, but also introduces, additional sidewalk area and additional area for planting. I don't know what our best plan is. We have it's kind of on the site plan a little bit, but
This is the ground floor plan. You want me to
Yeah.
go to it?
not just yet. Is that enough to answer that question? Or do
I
we?
think so.
Okay.
Certainly, any of those individuals who want more can certainly follow up with us. I don't think this was explicitly said rental apartments, not condos.
Yes, definitely all rental apartments.
Okay, very good. Let's see. There's a good question here. I always like this one. You may not have this answer handy, but we'll certainly want to talk about it in the future. Have you done any economic development any economic impact on this? And, for example, what can we expect this building to contribute to the property tax base, for example, annually, that type of thing?
Yeah. Well, because we all just got bills, I don't want to answer that question necessarily, but
Well, no, I'm going to actually counter you on that, Chris. I think this is a good question because it's important that these types of projects do get
So-
approved and happen because it keeps everybody else's taxes from going up as much.
yeah, so like from a, we've it's not so much economic impact relative to the city. It's more economic impact relative to our operating expenses. So we program typically, somewhere between $7,000 and $8,000 an apartment per apartment from a property tax point of view. This is a little more, and you can kind of do the math, or someone can do the math quickly. This building's a little bit more unique because of the amount of retail at the ground floor. So, this will definitely be contributing a heck of a lot more, than the existing vacant building and the one building that's operating on the site.
Probably about 2.1 million a year at that.
That sounds about right. So yeah, and we can certainly kind of sharpen something if someone cares to see what we feel this will bring. Where it gets difficult, to be perfectly honest, is the retail component. Because in addition to just the property tax, there is also an awful lot of sales tax that, both the restaurants and the soft good and the retailers are going to generate. And that's a really hard thing to kind of back of napkin.
Chris, do you, without asking you to commit, because I suspect you don't have it, do you have a rough sense of what a project of this size, what the project budget might be, and the number of people that might work on the site?
No, we can certainly start to pull that together. Work meaning like long-term, or work during the construction phase.
Construction phase.
We can get that for sure.
I was just trying to respond to Brian's question. Just thought people are sometimes interested in that. That's all. It's
right. No, we can.
It's a pretty substantial capital investment in the city.
Yes.
I think that's a good start, and certainly we'd love to hear more if we can get it in the near future here.
Yep.
Um, let's see. How many units will be affordable?
There'll be 8 on-site affordable units, and then we will be paying in lieu fee for, I believe 2023.
Do we know what that fee is or approximately what that is yet?
It's going to be about $4.5 million.
Okay, thank you. Some folks want to talk about traffic, understandably,
Yep.
in particular in relation to the Viceroy, which you also operate.
Yep.
What thought has been given to curbside management for this location?
Well, curbside management I guess there are kind of 2 tiers of stuff for the building. One is traditional service and loading and refuse removal. All of that, is going to be activated off the alley, similar to what Viceroy does now. We do have a pretty generous loading area at the rear of the building. Our goal is to keep everything relative to the building on site, not necessarily kind of encroaching into the alley area. I think the more difficult thing to manage is package delivery for a residential building. Right now, we're setting up kind of how the interior operates so we can receive, from the alley, but that's a bit of a delivery service management process, and it's kind of a taxing one. Um, Other than that, Elm Street is definitely the more residential street. That's where we want our entry, and our arrival. Uh, so I don't know if that kind of touches upon everything, but
Yeah,
we
I'd say
under
the one other aspect of it that folks are curious about, does the Viceroy currently use that surface parking lot that's in the rear that will not be there anymore?
They started using it when we purchased the property. The Viceroy Valet were going elsewhere, and then we had that surface lot. There was a sub-agreement with Melnati's going back a couple years where Melnati's was using that for staff parking. They're still using it for staff parking, but the Viceroy Valets are also using it right now. That's just that's kind of on a temporary basis. Once construction starts, we're going to have to go back to our previous valet park arrangement, which actually had them parking up on Dearborn. It was a bit of a hike.
Thank you. Um, we talked a little bit about Lou Malnati's already, but there's certainly more questions about that. Obviously, I wouldn't expect you guys to answer where Lou Malnati's might go, other than perhaps in that second floor space. Do you want to maybe show? I think there was an image where you could kind of see that space a little bit. It might be a space they're interested in. No commitment at this time, but being
Yeah,
discussed.
they have a packet, that includes, kind of like, a lot of what you're seeing here. And they are discussing it. So right here, like this image here, the gray brick with the glass element, that would be the in and up entry, up, and then on the upper level, there's like 7,200 square feet, which would be inclusive of front of house, back of house, and a terrace. And the terrace overlooks the Viceroy out, front yard terrace, and also the park. We think it's a pretty compelling, kind of setup, for a restaurant operator. I think, they just need to germinate a little bit whether they're interested. I know they do an awful lot of call it, kind of backdoor. Like they have a very big kitchen, behind, their front house right now. I won't call it takeout, but there is an awful lot of delivery that's managed from their existing, which might not be the best thing to attempt to do off a second floor. But they're looking at this seriously. We've also opened the door, you know, um, to them, the ability if they're on board early enough to help, set up this space as our tower is going vertical, this ground or this lower level element would be ready to start prepping, and hope with the hope that if there was, a deal, they could open shortly after, the building is completed and not have to do a build out after the building is completed, so to speak. So all I can say is we do have open dialogue with them. They are looking, uh, and they're looking at what other options they may have. I do know they have said they want to be in this neighborhood, so they are looking around and talking to us at the same time.
Yeah, I can confirm that. We're in a separate conversation with Lou Malnati's and their ownership group. They're very committed to this neighborhood. In a perfect world, their best option is the status quo. Sadly for them, that's not going to happen, and they know it. I think they're gradually coming to that realization. So, what's going to happen, it remains to be seen. They very much would like to stay in this neighborhood if terms can be agreed to, and I kind of think that's where we're at. We've had a lot of expression of desire from neighbors to have them there. They're aware of that. And the feeling is mutual. This is one of their top performing stores. So let's all cross our fingers and hope that the terms of the deal can be worked out to the mutual satisfaction of all parties.
Let's talk a little bit more about parking. For those on this meeting who might not be on as many of these meetings as those of us on this panel here, who are very familiar with how development has trended in Chicago in the last 10 to 20 years. So parking only covers 43% of the units. Obviously, this is a transit served location. If somebody could talk a little bit about what that looks like practically, what you're seeing in other buildings, other similar buildings, about car ownership and how that type of parking ratio works out in the modern residential scheme of things.
That is the target ratio. Like we've been
They should have
told,
been slightly less than that.
yeah, we've been told 40 is the target. So we're north of that a tiny bit, which is good. For a building position like this one, it's the 40%. It's just it is, like many similar buildings, it is the base of the building. It's not the most efficient from a square footage point of view parking, because you have to respect the structure and everything that's coming down from above. But we're slightly better than the 40% target that, that's been kind of like we've heard from multiple kind of management companies and such.
Sure. Do you have other properties in the area that have done this? Obviously, 4 East Elm is unique, but
Right.
something else with a similar ratio that you can point to?
We don't have another apartment building kind of like in Chicago, like a more contemporary apartment building where we've worked towards that 40%. In different parts of the country, that are more car centric, kind of less urban, we go above it a little bit. Years ago, I forgot what we did at North Water Park.
0.55 or something.
Alderman, do you want to weigh in on this one?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Do you want to weigh in on the parking question, kind of the modern context for how we do transit served locations with parking?
Yeah, sure. We routinely prohibit transit served locations from getting additional street parking. There's standard industry formulas for how much on-site parking needs to be provided in all of the developments. At least in the post-COVID era that I've been involved in, we have not had a single development that has built too few parking spaces. Everybody's going just a little over excess capacity, which is fine. But increasingly, we do not have the one-to-one ratio days. Those are long since passed. And we do take steps to make sure that the operation of the building in terms of leasing makes it very clear, don't move into this building and plan to own a car and park it on the street. That's just not an option. And people are told that going in, and people believe that. They take it seriously. So in all the new development that we've seen in recent years, there hasn't been a single case where it has caused that type of residential neighborhood parking issue with new residents trolling up and down the side streets looking for a place to leave their cars overnight. It's just not a concern that we have to worry about.
Thank you, Alderman. Will you be installing electric vehicle charging capability in the garage?
Yeah, we will, and I think we might be, how ordinance is working now. I think we will be installing it, and then I think we will be prepping every parking space for it in the future, meaning the building's electrical capacity needs to speak to that, and we need to provide, the conduit runs and such, from the incoming electrical service room to each parking spot. So yes, we will.
There's a question here about the south facade. Um, this person says it's blank and doesn't have windows. That's not correct, is it? The south facade has
No.
windows?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. So all the facades have a lot of windows. Yeah.
correct.
Okay, very good. Just wanted to confirm that. There's a couple questions specifically about traffic on Elm, not so much State. Have you, and I, think given the way you're locating the garage entrance, it's probably good to speak to how you've looked at that and what the thinking is.
Well, I guess from an access point of view, the location on Elm adjacent to the alley is really the place, for our garage access. Um, we really look at this alley and the alley, in our opinion, is much more of a service alley. We did not want to access the parking off of the alley. Um, and Elm Street, one way westbound, it just makes sense. You pass the entry, you turn, and you're into the garage, and then when you exit the garage, you're exiting and heading and continuing west. So I don't know if there's anything more specific about kind of that management. That being said, it is 132 cars. It's not like a big parking operation.
Thank you. Uh, you touched on this a little bit earlier when we were talking about what type of retailers you were hoping to attract. Can you talk more generally about what the demand is for retail space in this neighborhood? Just because there are, a fair amount of vacancies currently that folks are concerned this will bring more of them.
Um, from the folk, we don't have a broker engaged as of yet. It's a bit early in the process, although we are having those types of conversations. And everything we're hearing is that there is an appetite for the right type of retail, both from a a location and a space point of view. We I believe, is it this week? ICSC, which is the big retail group, they have a get together in New York. We'll probably learn more, when folks come back from that. But we're kind of like relatively bullish on the retail here, to be honest.
Yeah,
Specifically.
generally speaking, the vacancy rate in the neighborhood it's higher than any of us would like, but it's trending in the right direction. We're seeing some encouraging signs. We're seeing some interest in leasing activity. Potential tenants are kicking the tires on some vacant locations in the second ward, and that's a trend in the right direction. So we're hoping to see that continue. I can just share my personal opinion that this particular site is highly desirable, and it's going to go. It's not going to languish on the market very long. There's potential tenants out there that are going to recognize the high pedestrian traffic that goes by every day, just the general desirability of this corner. They won't have too much difficulty finding a desirable tenant.
Okay. Will the project be built under a project labor agreement?
No, we won't do a PLA for a project of this size, to be honest. We do have folks from O'Neill kind of sitting at our table with us today. It will be a traditional Chicago, union, type of job, but we will not do a PLA.
Here's a question about, you laid out a pretty detailed construction timeline. How solid do we feel about that? And also related to that, has the financing been secured?
I know I can't really speak to whether the financing has been secured. We are in the market. We also are in a process right now where we are wrapping up kind of one of our earlier phase design packages, which will go out in the market so we can start to refine our actual construction cost. But we are committed to having this project start in June of this year, and we're working aggressively to kind of meet that timeline.
Okay. Just reading. Let's see if we got the most of the general themes here. Certainly, there's plenty of comments, and we thank everybody for those comments. They will be passed along to the alderman. I'm just looking for specific questions that have not yet been answered at this point, and I feel like we're in pretty good shape on that, to be honest. If I missed a major topic, I apologize, and certainly don't hesitate to reach out to our office. But at this point, I think we can probably go to a couple live questions if people want to use the raise your hand feature. We have a little bit of time for that. So if go ahead and do that, and we'll get you unmuted and you can ask your question live. All right, I see Sally Looser. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. You are now able to unmute. Go ahead.
Mute. I'm curious as to what the cost is for the various units.
Oh, good one. Thank you, Sally. Yes, you did ask that and I missed it. Do you guys have a general idea of pricing for these unit types at this point?
We're working through that right now. It's going to be kind of aligned with the few other kind of new build kind of apartments, type one construction that are, I know there are a few kind of in Fulton Market area. Where, I can't break it down into kind of the exact rent, per individual unit, as of yet. But
Do you have a range? Do you have a range? You must have a range.
yeah, I would say like, a like a 400 or say a 500, square foot studio apartment is definitely going to be in the 2000 plus range. A 750 square foot one bedroom is probably getting into the high threes, pushing $4,000 a month.
Okay, thank you.
What is the square footage of retail on the first floor?
First floor, I believe, is 16,000 square feet approximately. And then the upper floor is just over 7,000 square feet. So I think in aggregate, we're coming in, right around 23,000, 24,000.
Just under 24.
Just under 24,000 in total.
Okay. Are there any other specific questions? Oh, let's see. Here's one that somebody typed in. Yeah, that's really more of a comment than a question, so we can certainly talk about that offline. Will this building be illuminated on the outside? It appears that there is lighting on the top of the original proposed building. Just wondering if this building will be lit up as well.
That's not something that we really look at doing kind of call it from a, like an,
It's not good for the environment.
well, yeah, we're not looking to do it from a brand point of view. I actually think any illumination on the exterior, which includes kind of the lower level planting setback, and the amenity areas is going to be a little bit more passive. If we have some landscape that we uplight, things along those lines, but there will not be kind of specific architectural lighting elements that make sense.
I have another question.
Yep.
You mentioned something about dining or restaurant facilities on an upper floor. Now, would that be open to people in the neighborhood or just to people in the building?
No, I think the second floor we were looking at we call it the in and up retail space. It would be a restaurant operation. It's not specific to the building. It's totally segregated from any sort of residential amenity we would do that would be more restrictive for the residents.
Okay, thank you.
Gene, I see your hand raised. Please go ahead.
I would like to yield to my husband.
Hi, this is Jerry Silverman. Who will manage the building after it's up and running?
We're talking to different management groups. We have some relationships. It would be a third party manager. We haven't selected who it may be as of yet.
I see. Thank you.
You would hold on to it, ownership?
Yes.
For a while?
Yeah, definitely. We would definitely hold on to it for a while. I can't really speak to, how long that may be. We are a real estate developer and we provide our own equity. We're not a fee developer, so it's not kind of something we're doing for a quick flip. But
How long were you, did you own the Viceroy?
we still own the Viceroy.
Oh, okay, good.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great question. Thank you. Mark, go ahead. There you go. Go ahead, Mark.
Will the windows protect migrating birds?
Yes, there is. I don't know the specifics of. We have had those conversations. The glazing will be, what's the term?
Bird safe.
Bird safe as the city requires.
Would be nesting for
Bird-friendly
birds.
glass. Yeah. And that I believe that was approved in the previous plan development and will be expected again from the Department of Planning and Development. Okay. Um, lead certification.
Oh,
We're not pursuing LEED certification, but we do have to meet the city's sustainability criteria, which may include like another third party, kind of a, verification or approval process. We're working through that right now.
What amenities are planned for residents?
Um, you know, we have two different amenity levels. We have the 18th floor, which is a bit more of a, call it, we kind of refer to it as a bit as kind of a work from home kind of environment where there may be some individual kind of small office areas and there will be some open sitting areas. They do have an exterior terrace to access from that level. The primary amenity will be on the 28th floor above all the residential. That will include fitness, like a spa, an interior spa type environment, a large, kind of living, kind of entertainment type space, and then an exterior pool deck with a pool. You can see like right above discussion, kind of the top of the building, that would be the pool deck, like right up above the D exactly. We'd have a pool up there, looking over the top of the Viceroy. So we're kind of excited about that. It's good exposure, good city views, things like that.
Will there be a doorman?
Um, I believe we are looking at a full-time doorman, yes.
What other kind of security as far as cameras and or staffing?
I'm not sure about the staffing, but we do have a process regarding kind of our back house area, how we actually secure the areas accessed by residents, which includes kind of like, package systems and package storage, bike room and things like that, so that they are kind of 100% segregated from kind of the retail service aspects of the building. There will be, I'm sure, by the time we're done with it, an awful lot of cameras and kind of card access type stuff for residents.
Since you mentioned the bike room, what's the bike parking situation?
I think we're staying at it's I believe 180 bikes, which is what was approved in the previous PD. We have made efforts to try and get the majority of that onto the ground floor. I believe the previous PD had the bike room in the basement, which it doesn't really lean to be the most usable environment to have to bring bike either up an elevator or upstairs to use it. So we're trying to get most of this on the first floor so it actually could be used. It would exit out to the alley, and be accessed from, kind of more directly from the lobby, the residential lobby on the interior.
All right. Question here about exterior building material and its reflectivity. Any concerns about sun refraction?
Low reflectivity glazing. So today, with the sustainability initiatives, and the kind of increased intensity for performance on the exterior wall, we are trying to keep the reflectivity to a minimum, while also keeping the performance of the glass at the highest portion possible. So it will not have an impact on the urban heat island.
Thank you. In the construction timeline that was presented, was that with 5 days a week construction or something different?
It'll be predominantly 5 days a week. I think foundations is a time when, depending on where they are, they may have to kind of push to a sixth day. And then as things progress, if there are significant, weather delays or things slow down, there might be a sixth day, but I think right now it's being budgeted as 5 day kind of typical operation within the city's prescribed work hours.
which are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. for those
Yeah.
who may not be aware. Will there be in-unit laundry?
Yes.
And that's vented, and then also dishwashers and disposals, I assume. Yes.
Yes.
High-end product. Very
Yep.
good. Mark, you had your hand up. I didn't get to you. If you still want to unmute, feel free, but or feel free to put the hand back up. Maybe your question already got answered. Give you a second on that. Let's see if there's another one here I can ask.
You answered it. Query was answered.
Great. Very good. All right. In that case, I think we have really covered the bulk of the subject matters that could possibly be asked here. So as we approach 7 o'clock, we'll go ahead and start wrapping things up here. Thank you to the development team for their time and for their pretty good answers on most of these items. For others, we might have some follow-up questions, and certainly don't hesitate to reach out to our office to get more detail, or if there's a question that was missed, happy to discuss that further. Alderman Hopkins, would you like to make any concluding remarks?
Yeah, thank you, team, for a good presentation. And as Brian mentioned, if you do have additional questions, if something occurs to you later after this meeting, please email my office right away, and we'll get your response. I appreciate your participation tonight. We had a very strong turnout for a local development question on a Zoom meeting. People are interested in this, so stay engaged. Stay engaged in your neighborhood, your building. I see Kim Bowman is on the call from Newberry. I'll give her a shout out. She's always willing to interface with our office, and we do have other development questions coming up in the immediate neighborhood. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. And this is also a good time to recommend that you sign up for my Second Word newsletter. If you don't already get it, go to my website and sign up. We also have an old-fashioned mail newsletter that'll be coming out in another week or so. So watch for that. We do try to keep our residents informed. Another way to stay informed is to participate in the Gold Coast Neighbors Association. We had our incoming president who spoke earlier. I'm going to give her a chance right now to reintroduce herself and to pitch membership. You might want to join Gold Coast Neighbors. Melissa, tell them why.
Yeah, so thank you, Alderman. So Melissa Rickey, incoming president with Gold Coast Neighbors Association. So excited to be here today, and thank you. This was very informative for our neighbors. If you are not a current Gold Coast Neighbors member, feel free to join goldcoastneighbors.org is our website. We also have social media pages as well. Really, our main goals, like I mentioned before, is safety, beautification, zoning, and really, living in a great, great area. So thank you so much for hosting this today, and look forward to working with you all in the future.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Happy Hanukkah to all and Merry Christmas, and hope to see you all soon.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.